Before Adam, before Eve, before the breath of life touched the dust, something already lived in the high heavens. You are about to delve into one of the most hidden revelations of divine creation, a truth that is hidden between the lines of the Bible and in the echoes of forgotten texts. Glorious beings, shaped by the Creator's own light, already existed, and they watched over the gates of paradise. Were they the first to contemplate the plan of creation? Were they witnesses or participants? While the universe was still chaos and darkness, these guardians were already positioned in sacred places. Stay until the end, because what you are about to hear now may completely change the way you understand the origin of the world. Comment below, "I want to meet the Guardians." This will help this video reach more people. Like it, activate the bell, and subscribe if you haven't already. But who were these beings? Genesis begins with, "In the beginning God created the heavens and the earth." But it doesn't say who was already with him. Job 38:7 declares, "The morning stars sang together, and all the sons of God shouted for joy." Who were the sons of God who witnessed the foundation of the world? And why were they so involved in the creation if there were no humans yet? Could we be talking about beings who predate the human race, who silently observed the designs of the Almighty? The answer leads us to a forgotten group, the heavenly guardians, angels with special assignments. Some are sent to protect, others to observe, and some never to interfere, just to contemplate the greatness of God in silence. According to ancient Hebrew writings, apocryphal texts, and prophetic visions, there were orders of angels who not only served but also guarded something sacred, the boundaries between heaven and the future creation. Cherubim with flaming swords, seraphim who flew around the throne, and others, even more mysterious, described as watchers, mentioned in the book of Enoch. These beings were present before the earth took shape. They knew what was coming. They knew about the creation of man, about free will, about the risk of error. And they also knew what needed to be prevented. They guarded secrets, places, and purposes that would only be revealed millennia later. But why would God create guardians before creating that which would be guarded? The answer may lie in the fear of corruption. Even before man, rebellion was a real possibility. Evil was not born in man. It was born of freedom. The guardians were not placed there merely for adornment, but for protection. They knew the plan. They knew that the freedom of created beings would bring risks. They knew what glory was, and also what pride was. And some of them, in time, would cross the line. They would forget their mission. They would trade the place of observer for the desire for dominion. This is the beginning of a profound spiritual journey where we will understand not only who the guardians are, but also why some of them failed and the eternal price of their fall. The Bible speaks of cherubim being placed to guard the way to the tree of life after Adam's fall. But this was not the first time they had served in this role. These beings were not created after man's error. They were there before, prepared in position. In Ezekiel 28, we read of a being described as a guardian cherub, placed in God's Eden before corruption entered. Many scholars believe this text points directly to Lucifer, not just as an angel, but as a high-ranking heavenly guardian, tasked with protecting something sacred. And it is precisely this proximity to the divine that makes his fall all the more shocking. He was no stranger to the throne. He was part of the honor guard of the Creator himself. The idea of heavenly guardians goes beyond poetic symbolism. In several ancient Jewish traditions, there are records of angelic classes called Ophanim, Seraphim, Malachim, and mainly the Grigori, known as the Watchers. The latter, according to the Book of Enoch, were in charge of watching over the earth, but ended up becoming corrupted when they fell in love with the daughters of men. In other words, even among those who were created to guard, there was room for deviation. This reveals a profound truth. Presence before God does not nullify the possibility of choice, and free will, even in heaven, can open loopholes for ruin. If the guardians failed, what exactly were they protecting? Was it the throne, the heavenly Eden, or perhaps something even deeper, the spiritual balance of creation? Ancient texts speak of spiritual portals, dimensions, and territories that need to be guarded. The cherubim in the temple, pictured covering the Ark of the Covenant with their wings, are only visible representations of invisible realities. What we see in the physical world is but a shadow of what exists in the spiritual, and their role goes far beyond guarding a garden. They guard access to God's presence, and that access is only allowed to the pure or the redeemed. But if some guardians fell, others remained faithful, and these continue to fulfill their mission to this day. Revelation 4 describes living beings full of eyes, surrounding the throne day and night, saying, "Holy, holy, holy is the Lord God, the Almighty." They do not sleep. They do not rest. They do not take their eyes off the eternal. They are the remnant, the faithful among the guardians, beings who know judgment, for they have seen the fall of their fellow men, but who also know mercy, for they serve a God who still extends his hand. Their existence is a silent reminder that even before man erred, vigilance was necessary, and until the end of time, it will continue to be. When we talk about guardians, we are not just talking about angels with swords or flying beings. We are talking about spiritual consciousnesses with specific functions, directly designated by God before the dawn of time as we know it. Beings whose existence predates the very concept of humanity. They know the weight of eternity. They know what glory is and what the fall is. And perhaps for this very reason, some have desired something more. Eternity without temptation was not a guarantee, and the desire to be like God was enough to open the doors to disobedience, even among those who zealously guarded holiness. It was this desire that transformed a guardian into an adversary. The one who once walked among the fiery stones, according to Ezekiel, became the adversary. Lucifer, the bearer of light, fell, and with him many others. But the most striking thing is that his fall did not begin with a war, but with an intention, a hidden thought, a seed of pride planted within a heart that was once pure. And this is perhaps the most profound lesson. The true battle does not begin with swords, but with ideas. Even in heaven, where everything was perfect, a single intention contrary to the divine purpose was enough to break the harmony. The book of Revelation tells us that there was war in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon and his followers, but before the confrontation, there was silence, a moment of cosmic tension, of decision. The guardians were forced to choose sides. There was no neutrality. Either they served the Creator or they would join the rebellion. Some hesitated, others fell, and a part remained steadfast. This division created not only a celestial rift, but forever redefined the concept of loyalty among spiritual beings. Eternity would never be the same again, and heaven began to bear invisible scars, marks left by those who were supposed to protect it. The mission of the guardians has changed since then. Those who stood by God's side began to guard not only the gates of glory, but also men, fragile creatures who do not even understand the depth of that protection. Many of those who still serve as spiritual ministers today are referred to in Scripture as angels, sent to minister for those who will be heirs of salvation. But the weight of their role remains. They saw the fall of their own, they saw the beginning of sin, they saw Eden closed, and now they follow the plan of redemption step by step. For paradise is not lost, it is guarded, and those who guard it are still there. Those guardians who remained faithful began to interact with the earthly plane more directly. In Genesis, we see angels protecting Lot, guiding Abraham, revealing dreams to Joseph, and even confronting kings. These appearances are not just occasional visits, they are part of an ongoing mission. Heavenly vigilance has never ceased. But there is a difference between angels sent with messages and spiritual boundary guardians. The latter do not communicate words, they communicate presence. They do not appear to deliver messages, they appear to contain the advance of evil and protect that which belongs to God. The texts of Ezekiel and Revelation reveal symbolic images that point to these spiritual guardians. Animals with multiple faces, wheels within wheels, eyes all over their bodies. These descriptions, however enigmatic they may seem, indicate a reality that goes beyond human imagination. The presence of these beings is so dense, so full of glory, that even the prophets prostrate themselves in fear before them. They are the ones who remain close to the throne and at the same time watch over the boundaries of the sacred. They are the sentinels of heaven, the observers of the world, the protectors of the invisible. But even with their faithfulness, these guardians know that evil still lurks. The fall of their heavenly brothers was not the end. It was the beginning of a silent war, a battle that does not take place with explosions or screams, but with influences, temptations, spiritual strategies. And those who guard paradise now watch the human race. They watch the steps of men, the advance of darkness, the suffering caused by sin. They do not intervene without orders, but when the divine plan demands it, they act with precision, because their mission is not to protect man, but to protect the eternal purpose of the Creator. The Apostle Paul wrote that the creation groans, waiting for the revealing of the sons of God. But there is something more than that. The spiritual world also awaits the fulfillment of time. The guardians do not forget. They remember what was lost, what was corrupted, and what will yet be restored. And when the time comes, according to the book of Revelation, there will be movement in the heavens again. The portals will be opened, the glory will be revealed. And the same guardians who were there at the beginning will be there at the end. Before the throne, in the clouds, in the heavens that will open like a book, because the lost paradise will be found again. Many ask why God would allow the fall of beings so close to Him. The truth is that not even the angels were exempt from choice. And it was precisely this freedom that revealed the difference between those who loved the throne and those who merely desired it. The guardians who remained faithful did so not out of fear, but out of reverence. They chose obedience even when they witnessed chaos. They chose to stand before the light even when darkness rose all around. And this choice, made even before time, echoes to this day in every silent gesture of spiritual protection that many do not even notice. There are passages in the Bible that suggest that these guardians are still at work. In Daniel, we read of a prince of the kingdom of Persia who resisted the angel sent by God. This reveals a spiritual dimension where entire nations have forces being watched and confronted by these unseen beings. The guardians not only protect what is holy, they confront what threatens God's plan. There are battles going on right now, above the visible heavens, in realms that the human mind cannot reach. But they are there, alert, untiring, and determined to maintain sacred order even in the face of increasing disorder in the world. The story of the guardians is also the story of a warning. Not even those closest to God are immune to pride, and proximity to the sacred demands responsibility. That is why these beings are portrayed with so many eyes, so many faces, so much vigilance. They do not get distracted. They do not settle. They know that any gap can be exploited by the forces of rebellion. And they also know that man, made of dust, but bearing the divine image, is at the center of a plan that the entire heavens watch with expectation. Because, unlike them, man will be redeemed and will occupy a place that many angels will never have. This may explain why there is so much spiritual resistance against human beings. The fallen guardians know that the throne will no longer be theirs. They know that the kingdom will be handed over to the saints, and so they fight furiously, trying to divert, corrupt, deceive. They no longer guard, they attack. They are the watchmen who have broken their vow, the sentinels who have become invaders. But on the other side, the faithful remain standing, and they protect us even when we cannot see them, because to this day, the gates of paradise are being guarded, and no one enters, no one touches, no one destroys that which God has determined to guard with his own glory. There is a concept present in several ancient traditions known as the veil, an invisible boundary between the visible and the invisible world, between the natural and the spiritual, between man and the guardians. This veil was not always opaque. In ancient times, prophets and chosen men were able to cross it for brief moments. Isaiah saw the throne, Ezekiel saw the wheels, John saw the heavens opened, and always in these visions there is something in common, the presence of the guardians. They are there, not as background figures, but as spiritual columns of the heavenly order. They maintain the structure of holiness, and the fact that they are always present is a reminder that access to the divine requires fear. When man sinned in Eden, the guardians were stationed with flaming swords to prevent his return. This was not punishment, it was mercy. That garden, now defiled by man's choice, could no longer be touched, and the guardians knew that allowing access to the tree of life in that state would be eternal damnation. They acted in obedience, even though it meant barring the creature. Made in the image of the Creator, the guarding of paradise was not just physical, it was spiritual. And the closing of the garden was, paradoxically, the beginning of the promise of redemption. For God did not lose control, he simply repositioned his. These beings, which some call angels and others watchmen, have a hierarchy that goes beyond human comprehension. There are archangels, heavenly princes, and organized hosts. Michael is mentioned as the one who fights for the nations, and Gabriel as the direct messenger of the Most High. But besides them, there are others who do not have a registered name, and perhaps for that very reason, they are the closest to the throne, those who were not sent but remain, those who do not speak but keep watch. These are the silent guardians, those whose glory is invisible, but whose authority makes even the heavens tremble. They do not perform miracles, they preserve holiness. Many people wonder if there is still a guarded paradise. The answer lies in Jesus' words to the thief on the cross, "Today you will be with me in paradise." This indicates that paradise has not disappeared. It has simply been elevated, hidden from view. And if it continues to exist, it is logical to conclude that it is also still being guarded. The same beings who protected it in the beginning are still there, between eternity and time, between the promise and the fulfillment, between us and what we will one day see again with our own eyes. But until then, the guardians remain, standing, faithful, silent. Many believe that heavenly guardians only act in heaven, but the truth is that their reach also touches the earth. There are times when their presence manifests itself in extreme situations, inexplicable deliverances, revelatory dreams, profound premonitions. They are not there to be worshipped nor to take God's place, but to ensure that events proceed according to the eternal plan. When a child of God is in danger, when a promise is about to be fulfilled, when a spiritual breach threatens the balance, they move, rarely seen, almost never noticed, but real, active, present. These guardians are not just warriors. They are witnesses to history. They saw the creation of man. They saw the blood of Abel cry out from the ground. They saw the patriarchs walk with God. They saw the Messiah born in the flesh. And now, they watch the end approach. They know the cycle. They know what is coming. So their silence is not passivity, it is expectation. They watch the heavens preparing, the signs aligning, the prophecies being fulfilled, and they know that the time will come when once again they will be called to action. Only this time, it will not be to protect Eden, but to herald the return of the King. Revelation reveals that there will be a trumpet blast, and the heavens will be opened, and with the one riding on a white horse will be a heavenly army. Many believe that among these are the guardians, the same ones who were there at the beginning, who witnessed the fall, who guarded paradise, will now march alongside the Lamb, not as symbolic figures, but as actual agents of the final judgment. And when that happens, there will be no more gates to guard, for the kingdom itself will descend to earth, and every eye will see, every tongue will confess, every spiritual structure will be exposed, and the glory of God will be unassailable. But until then, we need to understand we are not alone. There is a living spiritual reality that surrounds us and accompanies us. We do not worship the guardians, but we recognize their function in the divine plan. They point to something greater, to an eternal throne, to a holy purpose, and to a promise that is fulfilled even when the natural eyes do not see it. If today you feel like you are in an invisible battle, know that there is surveillance all around you, not by your merit, but by His grace. Because the God who created man had already placed guardians on the path. Long before Adam's first breath, there is a quiet beauty in the existence of these beings. They do not demand glory. They do not seek applause. They do not appear on stage. Their obedience is total. Their function is eternal. They are part of what Paul called the invisible cosmos, where thrones, powers, and dominions exist under the absolute control of God. The guardians are the ones who maintain order, even when the world seems to be collapsing. While human eyes see chaos, war, and darkness, spiritual eyes, when opened, see heavenly ranks in position, because the plan continues, and those who were appointed to guard are still in their posts. You may never see a guardian, you may never hear their voice, but if you belong to the kingdom, you can be sure that there are eyes watching over your life, eyes that do not sleep, that do not blink, that do not waver. They are not there to replace your faith, but to support your journey. And when darkness closes in, when all seems lost, remember, heaven is not silent. There are sentinels in high places, ready to act at the command of the Most High, because the same hand that created the guardians is the one that sustains you. What began with a protection over Eden ends with a spiritual guard over the New Jerusalem. In Revelation 21 we read that the gates of the heavenly city will never be shut again. But why? Because there will be no more threat. Because the faithful will have already overcome. And the guardians who once stood in the way will now celebrate the arrival of the redeemed. They not only protected, they waited. They were witnesses to God's faithfulness throughout the ages. And when the last chosen one enters into glory, the gates will open, not to close again, but to remain wide open to eternity. The story of the guardians is also our story, for we were created not to fear them, but to walk in the same obedience they demonstrated. And if some have fallen, may that remind us of the value of standing firm. If others have remained faithful, May that inspire us not to give up, because there is a place being prepared, a kingdom guarded by unseen hands, a destiny reserved for those who believe. And until that time comes, we will live in faith, with the certainty that there is more between heaven and earth than meets the eye. And among those wonders are the guardians. There is something sacred in the simple knowledge that the kingdom is being watched, that there are beings who have never been corrupted, who have never left their posts, who have never strayed from the plan. They do not look upon us with judgment, but with expectation, because they know the weight of choice and they know the power of redemption. While the natural world is in crisis, the heavens remain in perfect order, because sentinels are in place. There are boundaries that evil cannot cross. There are territories that remain sealed, and there are promises that will remain untouched, guarded by those they were shaped to protect. Time is moving forward. Prophecies are being fulfilled, and heaven, more than ever, is preparing for the return of the King. When that happens, the guardians will no longer stand before closed portals, but around open doors, welcoming those who have persevered to the end. They have seen the beginning of it all, and now they will see the glorious close of history. Their presence is a reminder that God has not lost control for a single second, and that everything is being watched, including your life. Not with eyes of fear, but with eyes of purpose. You are not alone. You never were. If today you feel like you are at war, that you are surrounded, that you are about to fall, know this: there are angels in battle, there are guardians on watch, and there is a God on the throne who knows every tear, every prayer, every choice. He knows what you are facing, and he has already designated protection even before the problem arose. Your story is not over yet, and as you walk, there are spiritual beings positioned, watching over what is yet to be accomplished in you. The vigilance is real, the kingdom is firm, and the heavens remain open to those who believe. Quote of the day: when everything seems silent, remember, even the silence of the sky is full of sentinels. If this story touched you, like it, turn on notifications and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next revelations. And comment below which city you're watching from. I want to know how far this message is reaching. May God bless you, and may the guardians continue to watch over the path of your faith.